Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. It is a beautiful day today, nice and sunny. And I thought I should, work outside. We're lucky this year. I know some people say it's too hot. No, I love it. It's not often we get this nice sunny weather in the UK for quite some time, consistent. It's been very hot for the past few weeks. But anyhow, it's nice to be with you again. I haven't been here on this space on YouTube for some time. I haven't been consistent, but life has been very busy. I am trying my best to be with you as often as I can. Running a home, being a mom, being a housewife, and working full time as well is not easy. But nonetheless, there are some important issues that we need to talk about, and I will find time to talk about those things. And one of them today, while working outside, I thought, you know what? Let me just do a short video to address this. And you tell me what you think, because it's been bugging me for quite some time. And I think it's about time we talk about it. And this is stigma around sickle cell disease. A lot of stigma is still being shown towards people with sickle cell disease, and this bothers me so much. The things I'm hearing, the things I used to hear back in the days, I'm still hearing those things today. And why is that? There is a lot of misconception, a lot of myths that people still think living with sickle cell, it's all kinds of things that we're going to talk about today. And we have to do a lot to stop this stigma around people with sickle cell disease. So let's dive straight in. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Marie Claire. I was born in Cameroon and I now live in the UK. But I spent most of my early teenage life in Cameroon. And during that time, just so you know, I was born with sickle cell disease. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And while growing up, there was so many mix and misconception about what my life was meant to turn out and what it meant for me living with sickle cell disease. And I tell you what, some of these things stuck with me because I didn't know any better. I was called all kinds of names. I was told about so many things that I can't even begin to tell you. I wasn't going to have children. I was going to die early. I was part of a cult, and all these sort of things. And you can imagine what that does to a child. And of course, a lot of families don't even know any better. Sickle cell is something that affects a lot of people around the world, and majority of them are based in Africa. You know, and the amount of stigma still attached to sickle cell disease is boiling my blood. Recently, I came across some horrible situation about a family being thrown out of the house by her husband because she has two boys that have sickle cell disease. These things are still happening. Why? Why? People still think that if you're born with sickle cell, that means you are from a certain shrine, you are from a cult, and they have to treat you differently from all the other children, from everyone else. No, that's not right. People still think that if you're born with sickle cell, you're going to die early, you're going to die maybe, you're not even going to make it to 10 years old, you're not even going to make it to 21 or 22 like I was told, and I believed it. Honestly, I did not know any better. And can you imagine what it means for families that don't know any better? They're treating these children like they are outcasts. They are not giving them the support in life that they need. They're human beings too, and so they should be treated as such. And it kills me to hear this thing. And just so you know, while growing up in Cameroon, I knew that, from what I was being told, of course, that I was going to die early. And for some reason, I believe that because a lot of my peers, a lot of the people that had sickle cell around my age didn't make it. They died. So I'm not surprised that myth, that misconception, that stigma, that people think that living with sickle cell you will die early, because a lot of people were dying early. I was fortunate to be alive. And when I got past the age of 21, I thought, no, this is not normal. Why am I still alive? Why am I still alive? Life was very difficult, of course, living with sickle cell, but I was alive. And that kept me thinking that what are the other things that they have been telling me that aren't true? So I want us to talk about this. What can we do to stop the stigma around sickle cell disease? Children deserve to live a better quality of life, even with the challenges of sickle cell disease. They need to be treated as normal human beings. I hear a lot of families are not investing in their children because they're not going to have a reward to their investment. Because, oh, he's always sick, she's always sick. There's no point spending so much money and sending them to a nice school because there's no chance of them becoming something in the future. That breaks my heart. It's about time we stop thinking that. Because if my parents had thought the same about me, where will I be today? I wouldn't be here inspiring people that it's okay to live with sickle cell disease. So let's stop that stigma. And what exactly can we do? We have to educate people to understand why people are born with sickle cell disease. It's not the fault of the mother or the father alone. And it's nobody's fault, it's genetics. And until we understand that genetics plays a big part in having children with sickle cell disease, the stigma will not stop. Until we understand why people are born with sickle cell disease, people are still going to be treating them as outcasts of the society, which they shouldn't be. We have so many people with sickle cell disease that have grown up to their late 60s. I have come across so many of them. So why should we put that label on people with sickle cell disease? I always say that you have to do your best. You have to live your best life. Because at the end of the day, everyone is going to die, whether you've got sickle cell or not. But until you accept that you've got sickle cell and you're different, and there's nothing wrong with being different, you will not come out of that stigma because that's what happened to me. I spent my whole teenage years thinking that there's no point of me working so hard and passing my exams and aspiring to wanting to become something because I'm going to die anyway. So there was no point. But that changed very quickly because I had support from my family. I had support when I traveled. And I know not everybody has the opportunity to travel. And when I traveled, I saw a different perspective of what it means to live with sickle cell disease. And that's the reason why I want to bring this perspective to every single person around the world to know that you can live a perfectly normal life with sickle cell disease, even though we've got challenges. Every single person has some form of challenge in their lives, but we're not going to stick to those challenges and let it take over us. You've got sickle cell, so what? People said I wasn't going to have children, and that's the stigma out there. You hear a lot of families not wanting their children to marry into a family that has sickle cell disease because of the fear of having an offspring with sickle cell disease. That is a shame. And until we begin to understand why people are born with sickle cell, we will not be able to stop this from happening. Yes, it's very risky for two people with sickle cell to marry each other. As a matter of fact, I would not advise it. But you have people that have sickle cell trait that are so in love with each other, and breaking that relationship has massive mental health impact. And what would we rather preserve? So it's important that we educate people, and it's up to them to make an informed choice, an informed decision on how they want to go ahead with their relationship. Stop hating on people with sickle cell. Start investing in your children. And for those of you who have sickle cell, start believing in yourself, because no matter what people think or say about you, you know yourself. You have to start believing that you can become something in the society. You can make a difference in the society, regardless of your sickle cell status. So, how does sickle cell come about? It's a genetic condition, like I mentioned earlier. That means you're born with it. Both parents have to carry a trait for you to be born with sickle cell disease. So, for a man or a woman to be throwing the family out because they have a child with sickle cell, that is a shame. We have to start sensitizing family to understand why people are born with sickle cell. And if you can avoid it, fine. If you can't, then you have to seek the appropriate support to support you and your family. Let's stop giving names to these people with sickle cell disease and saying all sorts of horrible things about them. They're not witches, they're not witchcrafts, they're not wizards, they're not obanjes, and all the horrible things that I have been told about. I mean, when I was young, I remember some families would not even want me to play with the kids for fear of for fear of their kids catching sickle cell disease. No, that is a myth. That is a stigma. You cannot catch sickle cell disease just by playing or touching someone. So until we understand that, we cannot support people with sickle cell disease. I'm outside, so you can hear the cars going up and down. So, I mean, we have to allow these children to have a normal life, to play with their friends, to be who they want to be as children, as adults, and let them grow up with the love and support that they can get from their families and the community. We have to start engaging them and teaching them how to look after themselves with sickle cell disease. Because we do have sickle cell disease, but sickle cell disease doesn't have us, because as much as it is difficult to live with the condition, we have to make the most of our life. And nobody, I always say that, nobody has the audacity to put a time frame on your life except God. So keep living your best life and keep educating and sensitizing people about sickle cell disease and creating as much awareness as possible, because the more people are aware of what and how sickle cell manifests, the stigma will not stop. So please, let's stop the stigma around sickle cell disease. I know a lot of this misconception has come, or this stigma has come as a result of the way people um, live with sickle cell in developing countries, in Africa especially. I mean, I'm sure this applies to many parts of the world, but I'm only referencing Africa because I grew up in Africa. So a lot of children with sickle cell do die early, and that's where the stigma has come from. So people just have a general idea that, if you've got sickle cell disease, there's no way you can make it to your 10s, your 20s, or you name it. And I think the reason behind this is that a lot of people in developing, mostly remote areas in Africa, can barely afford to put food on the table, let alone cater for medical bills. And living with sickle cell means you have to be constantly monitored by a medical professional. You have to be in hospital most of the time. And these cost money, unlike in most developed countries. You have to pay for hospital bills, you have to buy medication, you have to provide healthy food for people living with sickle cell disease. And you have other siblings that need taking care of. So these tend to be really difficult most of the time. And as a result, some of them don't even make it to their 10th-year-old birthdays. I remember growing up with sickle cell disease in Cameroon, a lot of my peers passed away while they were young because they either had a sickle cell crisis and they had one or two complications, they go into hospital and they don't come back alive. But I was fortunate to have both of my parents working. My brother and I had sickle cell disease. It was difficult. A lot of money was being put onto me and my brother. And I can only imagine the burden and the pain that my parents must have gone through, coupled with all this stigma that happened around us. So it is difficult to live with sickle cell disease, and a lot of these families need support and also understanding of how to manage children living with sickle cell. But we can play a big part in this stigma because if we do nothing about it, it's only going to get worse. I have come across stories where children are being stoned to death, children are being isolated, children are being kept in situations where they don't want interaction with other children, fear of other children catching sickle cell disease. Do you have any idea what those children are going through? Until we start creating awareness and education, these things aren't going to stop because every child deserves a better quality of life, regardless of who and where they are, regardless of what medical condition they suffer from. So please, let's keep creating awareness, especially in the remote areas that people have very little knowledge about sickle cell disease. I am looking forward to that day where I will talk to these families and educate them to their level how sickle cell disease comes about, what happens for you to have a child with sickle cell disease. So we all have to create as much awareness. We have to include these families. We have to include these children. We have to be an inspiration to every single one across the world that lives with sickle cell disease. Because you can live to your potential, however long or short your life is meant to be. I was told I was going to die at the age of 21, 22, but that didn't happen. And that changed everything about me. I had hope. I was told I wasn't going to have children. I've got two beautiful boys. That changed everything about me. I've got hope, so you can as well. You have to stop thinking that sickle cell disease is a death sentence on you and that of your family. I get up and take every day as it comes. I know I am privileged to live in a developed country. Not many people have the privilege to have a better health care, but the least we can do is to educate people and to eradicate the stigma around sickle cell disease. Until people understand that a man and a woman come together and their genetics bind to have a child with sickle cell disease, these stigmas are not going to stop. People are still going to be thrown out of their houses. Every child deserves something better. Every child deserves a future. Please, let's keep promoting the awareness and education of sickle cell disease. Take care and God bless you.